Survival of the Sickest is a book written by Dr. Sharon Molam, which discusses evolutionary biology. Dr. Molam's book is divided into several different studies, each backed with its own scientific data and theories. However, they all relate to the idea that many of our genetic diseases that our society faces today has actually had many positive effects throughout history. Because there are many different individual hypotheses in the book, I will only address my favorite ones. Dr. Molam discusses hemochromatosis, a hereditary disease that disrupts the way the body metabolizes iron, and explains how it has helped us in the past. People with hemochromatosis make too much iron. However, a certain type of white blood cell called macrophage doesn't get enough iron. Because of this, when deadly bacterial diseases, like the bubonic plague, enter our bodies and are fought off by our macrophages, the disease can't spread because it starves as they can't get enough iron. Because of this, people with hemochromatosis were better able to survive the bubonic plague and pass on their genes to their children. However, now in modern days, these positive aspects of hemochromatosis are less relevant, as we now have better medicine to protect us against bacteria. Dr. Molam's example of hemochromatosis relates to Big Idea 1, which states the process of evolution drives the diversity and unity of life. People with hemochromatosis were better able to survive the bubonic plague, which allowed them to pass it on to their children. This is an example of natural selection, and is the reason why many people still have hemochromatosis today. In Chapter 6, Dr. Molam discusses the specifics about our genes. He writes about how recently scientists have begun to conceive genes as an intricate network of information, as opposed to specific instructions. Dr. Molam writes about jumping genes, which are the parts of the DNA that is transferable. These jumping genes can move from one location to another across the genome, which results in rapid mutations. Dr. Molam uses these jumping genes to explain how organisms can rapidly respond to changes in their environment, and how those changes will not always be passed down to their next generation. One example that Dr. Molam gives us is McClintock's corn research, in which McClintock discovers the jumping gene. Dr. Molam writes, especially when the plants were stressed, McClintock discovered whole sequences of DNA moving from one place to another, even inserting themselves into active genes. Through her corn research, McClintock was able to provide seismic changes in the corn's genes, whose purpose was to create mutations in order to adapt to change. McClintock's corn experiment relates to Big Idea 3, which states, living systems store, retrieve, transmit, and respond to information essential to life's processes. McClintock's experiment shows how plants retrieve information and respond to a changing environment. The plant's DNA would rapidly alter in hopes of creating a mutation that would better help the plant survive. Dr. Molam also discusses how humans have adapted to survive the severe cold and theorizes that rapid climate change can occur. Dr. Molam suggests that diabetes could have been a genetic disorder that protects us from the cold by producing excess sugar, which would lower the freezing point of our blood, providing our bodies with extra heat. Dr. Molam also points out that many of the groups of people with diabetes today were the same groups of people whose ancestors battled against the cold the most. Dr. Molam writes, is it a coincidence that the people most likely to have a genetic propensity for a disease characterized by exactly that, excessive elimination of water and high blood sugar, are people descended from exactly those places most ravaged by the sudden onset of an ice age about 13,000 years ago? Dr. Molam also looked at our bodies' natural defenses towards coldness. When we get cold, our bodies begin to shiver, which increases muscle movement, allowing our bodies to burn more sugar, which produces heat. Our bodies will also retract our warm blood from our fingers and toes to our vital organs, keeping them warm. This relates to Big Idea 2, which states biological systems utilize free energy and molecular building blocks to grow, to reproduce, and to maintain dynamic homeostasis. When we shiver in the cold, we're utilizing the free energy inside our bodies, as we produce heat through movement. We do the same when we shift our blood from our appendages to our central organs, as we move energy to where we need it most in our bodies. By utilizing these tricks, our body is able to better maintain dynamic homeostasis, as we have an effective response to the cold. When we are cold, diabetes is another way that helps some humans maintain dynamic homeostasis by utilizing the free energy of their excess sugar in their bodies. Although diabetes can cause health risks throughout one life, it did actually have some positive aspects to it, which allowed our ancestors to better survive in the cold. In his book, Dr. Molam excellently explains why we need disease. Using evolutionary biology, Dr. Molam explains how our DNA mutates to adapt and combat the world's changing climate. My favorite part of the book was when it talked about how diabetes helped our ancestors survive the cold. I liked it because I know a couple of people with diabetes, and this chapter helped me understand more about it. I really enjoyed reading Survival of the Sickest, as it was very educational and made me realize just how much of a role evolution has played throughout history. Dr. Molam's writing style wasn't very difficult to read, and it was easy to follow along and see how he uses his evidence to support his hypothesis. Overall, I enjoyed reading this book, and I would recommend it to anyone who wants to learn more about evolution. Thank you.